I messed up and now I'm paying for it. I want everyone to know that when you make the wrong choices, there are real consequences. It's so important to do the right thing, right when it matters. This footage shows what happened after Savannah rapper Quando Rondo was sentenced to serve time behind bars. And here's the shocker: the streets are saying goodbye to him, maybe for good. Want to know what's really going on with the rapper behind bars? Stick with me and I'll tell you everything. In a twist no one saw coming, Quando Rondo, the Georgia rapper, is now locked up. Stay tuned to find out what led to this unexpected turn of events. Spending Christmas behind bars, that's a tough way to close out the year for a rapper who started off free, despite facing some serious legal problems. The government's crackdown on issues in rap culture has led to Quando Rondo being sentenced to 33 months in federal prison. What's interesting is that this sentence, handed down by Judge R. Stan Baker, marks the end of a case that's been going on for about a year. Judge Baker made it clear that the Savannah rapper has to serve over 2 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. What do you think about this tough sentence? Stay tuned for more updates as we follow his story. You won't believe this, but reports are saying that the rapper was almost hit with a fine of up to $40,000 as part of his punishment. This news shocked the industry and had fans questioning what this whole case was really about. So here's the deal: Quando Rondo's sentencing is connected to a drug case he's been fighting for over a year. His real name is Quando Rondo, and at first he was looking at up to 5 years in prison. But in August, he made a plea deal with the U.S. Department of Justice, agreeing to plead guilty only to the marijuana charge. Pretty crazy, right? Stay tuned as we keep following the story. Here's where it gets interesting. As part of the plea deal, prosecutors dropped some serious charges against Quando Rondo. These included conspiracy to possess and distribute meth, cocaine, fentanyl, and marijuana. If he had been convicted of those charges, he could have faced up to 20 years behind bars. Instead, he was convicted of a lesser charge, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. His lawyer hasn't responded to any media requests for comment just yet. But during the sentencing, the judge took all sorts of things into account before making the final decision. What do you think about this deal? Stay tuned for more updates on his case. Here's where it gets really interesting. The judge took into account that while Quando Rondo had been in a gang before, he had left that life behind. He managed to convince the judge that he had truly changed. The judge called it a sophisticated conspiracy, but the prosecutors argued that Quando Rondo, or Tekian Bowman, is still seen as a role model by many in his community. U.S. Attorney Bradley Thompson from the Southern District of Georgia asked for a sentence of 37 months and a $50,000 fine, hoping this would help guide Rondo toward a better future. What do you think about the sentence and the arguments made? Stay with me for more updates. Here's something wild. The prosecutor said the rapper has a chance to stay on a better path, especially since kids look up to him. They're hoping he'll use that influence to make better choices. But here's the crazy part: this rapper was allegedly selling marijuana in packages that had a QR code linking to his music. Honestly, that's a pretty bold marketing move. I mean, who even thinks of something like that? He basically found a way to have his customers get high on his product while listening to his songs. Is that genius or just a little too much? What do you think? Here's where it gets interesting. The defense had a lot to say. Attorney Tom Withers argued that Quando Rondo should be sentenced to just 24 months in prison, saying his situation was different and that the changing marijuana laws in the U.S. should be considered. He assured the court that Quando Rondo was done with his gang past and was focused on giving back to his community. To really get the court's attention, the lawyer shared a powerful story about Quando Rondo's tough childhood, explaining how those struggles shaped who he is today. What do you think? Should that be enough to lighten his sentence? Let me know your thoughts. Quando Rondo's journey hasn't been easy. Growing up in Savannah, he went through a lot before finding his passion for music. As a teenager, he spent time in juvenile detention, and in 2019, he was in county jail for several months before getting bailed out. The Rollin' 60s gang started in Los Angeles in 1976, around the Hyde Park area, and grew out of the West Side Crips. Over the years, it spread to other cities in the U.S. With about 1,600 members, it's one of the largest street gangs in Los Angeles. Members often rep the Seattle Mariners or Chicago White Sox logos, and they mark their territory with graffiti. But Quando Rondo's lawyer made a point during the case: despite his rough childhood and past choices, he's worked hard to change. What do you think about his argument? Let me know your thoughts. Quando Rondo's journey hasn't been easy. From being burned with an iron as a baby to growing up in foster care, he's faced a lot. But despite all that, he's kept his fire alive in the music industry. After his sentencing, you can see him in high spirits, surrounded by family and friends who came to show their support outside the court. In a personal statement, he acknowledged his mistake, saying, "I did the wrong thing," and accepted the court's judgment. It's a powerful moment of taking responsibility. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know. After his sentencing, the rapper shared his thoughts with reporters, making it clear that he knew he was being held accountable for his actions. "I'm getting punished for it," he said, reminding everyone that doing wrong does come with consequences and that doing the right thing is what truly matters. He told WJCL22 News that, surprisingly, he's thankful for the sentence because it will give him the time he needs to reflect on his life and figure out how to rebuild his relationship with his community. As crazy as it might sound, he believes it's the perfect chance to really take a step back and grow. What do you think about his approach? Quando Rondo opened up about his plans to use this time to improve himself and come up with better goals for the future. He wants to move forward not just for himself, but for his family and friends too. But he didn't stop there. He's also thinking about his fans, especially the younger ones who look up to him. He wants to show them that there's a better way, saying going to school is cool, playing sports from Little League all the way to high school is cool, and most importantly, doing the right thing and staying on the right path is cool. What do you think about his message to the kids? Let me know your thoughts. Quando Rondo has big plans for his future. When asked about what's next, he confidently said platinum records, diamond records, and more money, but his journey ahead isn't easy. After serving time in federal prison, he has to go through 3 years of supervised release and pay a $440,000 fine. On top of that, he'll need to go to mental health treatment, take regular drug tests, and stay away from known gang members. It's clear he's facing some serious changes, but it looks like he's ready to turn things around. What do you think about his future plans? Do you believe he'll make it? Let me know. Quando Rondo is set to begin his sentence at either FCI Jessup or FCI Ale on January 10, 2025, after he checks in with the Bureau of Prisons. Surprisingly, fans are reacting pretty positively to his attitude about the situation. Some are really inspired by the energy he's bringing. One fan commented, "I'm proud of him. I forgot he was even in trouble. I don't think he'll serve all his time. He's done a 160, maybe 180, but he knows he still has a bit to take care of in the streets. But I think he'll get out soon." It's clear fans are rooting for him. What do you think? Do you believe he'll get through this and come out on top? Let me know your thoughts. Some fans believe Quando Rondo might come out of this situation a completely different person. One user even joked he just now realized that if you do wrong, you get punished. How ignorant, but others think his actions are just plain ridiculous. After all, he's been through some major close calls like surviving dangerous situations and dodging serious legal trouble, and still he's getting himself tangled up with the law. One person commented, "This dude's stupid. He's wasting his talent and still getting into all this trouble." What do you think? Can he turn things around, or is he just making things worse for himself? Share your thoughts. It's crazy, right? He avoided death, his career was on the rise, and he was free after all that. Now, he's ending up in jail like so many others. Some people are just shaking their heads saying, what a waste of talent. Like many young rappers, Quando Rondo has had his fair share of run-ins with the law, and now his legal issues seem to be stacking up, just like the tracks on his latest album. Fans and people online are starting to question the whole situation, with some even doubting that Rondo was really involved in selling and distributing marijuana. They think maybe that was just a cover for something else going on. So, what do you think? Do you believe there's more to the story, or is it just what it seems? Let me know your thoughts. People are saying Quando Rondo's prison sentence might actually be a clever way to keep him safe and out of harm's way on the streets. It sounds wild, but conspiracy theories like this are everywhere. During his sentencing hearing, something interesting came UP-U.S. Attorney Bradley Thompson from the Southern District of Georgia pointed to Q's song lyrics, claiming they showed ties to gang activity. He even mentioned lines from one of his latest tracks, Life Goes On, where Quando talks about a tragic event. Quando Rondo paid tribute to his cousin Sava Robinson, better known as El Pap, in a heartfelt music video by releasing blue and white balloons. El Pap tragically lost his life in a murder-for-hire plot during a targeted shooting at a gas station in Los Angeles, an attack meant for Quando himself. This heartbreaking story has people talking, especially as courts continue to use music lyrics and videos as evidence. While some argue it's unfair, this trend has been growing in recent years. We've seen it in cases like Young Thug's YSL Rico trial, where rap lyrics were brought in as part of the legal battle. Back in November, things took a shocking turn when a Grammy-winning rapper and leader of the OTF music group was arrested. He was accused of being involved in a murder-for-hire plot aimed at Quando Rondo, which ended in the tragic death of El Pap. Prosecutors claimed the colors blue and white, seen in Quando's tribute video, symbolized a local street gang. They also pointed to Quando's long-standing issues with OTF. To make their case, they brought up his music lyrics and even the balloons used in his video, saying it was proof of gang ties. The prosecutors' claims aren't just random accusations. According to records, Quando Rondo has been linked to gang activity with the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips. Things got even more serious on June 14th when a grand jury hit him with multiple charges. These included conspiracy to break Georgia's drug laws, violating the Street Gang Terrorism Act, and using communication devices illegally. Prosecutors also claimed that Quando was an active member of the Rollin 60s, making the case against him even stronger. Quando Rondo is in deep with allegations that he asked fellow gang members for help, specifically to provide guns and assist with a marijuana deal. Word on the street is that the state case is trying to label him as the leader of the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips. While the federal charges focus on marijuana and drug offenses, the state case is all about his gang involvement. 1090 Jake explained the whole mess to DJ Vlad, breaking down how both the federal and state cases are tied to Quando Rondo's connections to gangs and drugs. Quando Rondo's legal troubles just got bigger. What started as a state case quickly turned into a federal one. The feds are focusing on charges related to selling weed, while the state case is going after him for being the leader of the Rollins 60s Crips. They claim he used communication devices to set up drug deals and other illegal activities. 1090 Jake explained to DJ Vlad that Quando Rondo was arrested and federally charged as part of a larger investigation. Prosecutors are saying he's the leader of the Rollins 60s Crips, which is making his situation even more serious. Quando Rondo is now facing federal charges, which include selling drugs and using communication devices to set up deals with some involvement of firearms. What's interesting is that the federal case isn't focusing on his gang ties. Instead, it's all about the drug sales. Known for working with NBA YoungBoy, the rapper from Savannah had already distanced himself from the Rollins 60s Crips. This has left many people wondering, are these charges based on recent actions, or is it something from his past coming back to haunt him? 1090 Jake thinks the truth behind Rondo's case is more complicated than we might think. Quando Rondo probably distanced himself from the gang to stay safe and focus on his music career. He's made it clear that he's no longer claiming his neighborhood ties, but it's not as simple as just saying, "I'm done." The proper way to leave a gang is through a formal process, but since he's not even originally from there, it raises questions about how things work in Atlanta. Speaking of Atlanta, let me break it down for you so you can really understand the politics behind all of this. When most people think of Georgia, they immediately picture Atlanta, but the reality is that Atlanta feels pretty different from the rest of the state. While Atlanta has seen major economic growth, places like Savannah, where Quando Rondo is from, are a whole other story. Savannah is located on the East Coast, right next to the ocean, but it's definitely not a beach paradise. Interestingly, back in the 1920s, Savannah was thriving as an industrial hub. Since then, though, the city has seen a decline in growth. When you think of Georgia, you probably think of Atlanta, but Savannah, where Quando Rondo is from, is a whole different world. Savannah used to be an industrial hub, but today it relies heavily on tourism. At first, I couldn't believe it, but in 2022, over 17 million people visited the Savannah-Chatham County area, bringing in over $4 billion. Despite the tourist money, though, the average income in Savannah is just $28,000 a year, definitely not enough to even cover gas in places like California. So, what does that mean for the people who live there? With so many people living below the poverty line, the crime rate is high, and it's no surprise that some of the most notorious people come from neighborhoods like this. Unlike the East and West Coast, where there's a clear divide between poor areas and wealthy ones, Savannah doesn't have those same boundaries. Most people are struggling to get by, and the line between the hood and the rest of the city is blurry. Life can get so tough that even talented young boys with dreams of rapping end up hiding out, trying to stay safe. This is the kind of world that shaped Quando Rondo, and it's what made him who he is today. Quando Rondo's childhood was far from normal. Born in 1999, he grew up in the Westlake projects where life was chaotic and tough. His home situation was so unstable that he ended up in foster care. This meant he bounced from one foster home to another, growing up feeling really alone. Things took a turn when he was 11 years old. While staying with his aunt, he got into a fight with his cousin, and it got pretty bad. He hurt him more than he expected. What happened next caught him off guard. His aunt made a decision that would change his life forever. After the fight with his cousin, Quando Rondo's aunt called the cops, and he spent 7 days in juvenile detention. That was just the beginning of his run-ins with the law. By the time he was 13, it was rumored that he cut off his ankle monitor and started breaking into houses to steal what he needed to get by. With no parents around, the streets became his new home. He had no choice but to survive however he could, and that's when life on the streets really started shaping who he was. Living on the streets, it seemed like the streets actually had his back, and here's why. In 2010, some of Los Angeles' biggest names decided to move to Georgia, where things were starting to thrive. The catch: most of these guys were Rollins 60s Crips. As more and more people from LA settled in Georgia, they brought their gang ties with them. The first neighborhood in Georgia to really represent the Rollins 60s was Keiko, and over time, their numbers grew to over 1,000 members. Now, many of Atlanta's most influential people come from this gang. A lot of well-known rappers are connected to the Rollins 60s Crips, and here's how things went down. You know how fast news spreads on the streets? It's like wildfire. Through their street businesses and deals, the Rollins 60s started making their mark in Savannah, too. They first spread across the west and south sides of the county areas where Quando Rondo lived. By this time, Quando Rondo was getting older, roaming the streets and looking for his place. He was waiting for the right moment to make his move and join the crew. In 2014, a new crew started making waves in the city, and that's when Quando Rondo saw his big chance. While he was locked up with another teen named Caffey Murphy, the two became fast friends and dreamed of taking over the streets of Savannah. But just as they were about to get things rolling, something happened that completely changed the course of their friendship. As soon as they got out of jail, Quando Rondo was caught with an illegal weapon and sent back to detention almost immediately. In 2014, Quando Rondo's friend Cafe woke up one morning and decided to take a tool from Quando's apartment. When Quando came back home, he immediately noticed something was missing and he knew right away who took it. Cafe didn't try to deny it, he was planning to sell it to someone else, so Quando Rondo called up a few friends and set out to find Cafe. Soon after, Cafe found someone interested in buying the tool, but he knew these kinds of deals often end badly. Cafe reached out to an older guy named Alan Moore, asking him to team up for something the next day. So on April 26, Cafe met Moore at his driveway on 3800 Bow Street. They went straight to meet the buyer, a guy named Norman Juki Kentucky Jr. But when they arrived, it didn't seem like Juki was there to buy anything at all. Out of nowhere, a fight broke out, and before anyone knew it, Cafe Murphy was shot and killed. Even though Juki was sentenced to life for the crime, it didn't bring Quando Rondo any comfort. In fact, it shattered him. The whole thing changed his life forever. The tragic events made his heart even harder. When he got out of custody, Quando Rondo knew he needed another weapon. But before he could get away with it, tragedy struck again. He was caught with it and, as expected, sent back to detention. Honestly, I've never seen anyone go in and out of juvenile detention like Quando Rondo did at such a young age, but each time he grew more hardened by the streets. The important part is that through all of it, he started to gain focus. After about 2 years of being in and out of detention, Quando Rondo came out with a new drive, fueled by a passion and dream that would push him forward. Quando Rondo's big break came with a video showing him freestyling while blasting beats from a car. The video went viral on Instagram and quickly grabbed the internet's attention. His freestyle even caught the ear of Atlanta rapper Lil Baby, who was already connected to Quando Rondo through the Rollin' 60s Crips. In 2018, Quando Rondo recorded a track with Lil Baby, which helped him break into mainstream success. But back in Savannah, the Rollin' 60s were growing stronger on the streets, adding more pressure on him. The streets were controlled by them, and they did what they wanted. That's why many people couldn't believe that a rapper like Quando Rondo, who came from such a tough background and eventually made it big, would end up selling weed. But Quando Rondo didn't hide from it. In an interview, he straight up said he was ready to serve time if it came to that. When asked if he was prepared for jail, he calmly replied, "I'm too solid to fold. Yeah, I'm prepared." During the interview, he spoke honestly about his ongoing legal battles, showing he was ready to face whatever came his way. Quando Rondo made a guilty plea in a federal case for distributing marijuana. Although he was facing up to 5 years in prison, he ended up getting 33 months. In the interview, he opened up about how much he's changed over time, especially his conversion to Islam and his commitment to staying sober. He's been clean for over a year now, reflecting on his struggles with substance use that started when he was just 16. Now, at 25, he has a clear mind and a stronger sense of purpose. He wants to use his story to inspire young people to stay away from drugs and the dangers they bring. Quando Rondo talked about finding peace with everyone and hoping for a better future. But there's still one problem: he can't escape his long-standing beef with OTF. This tension has already led to Lil Durk and 5 other OTF members getting arrested. The feud between Quando Rondo and OTF started because of their connections. King Von was close to Lil Durk, while Quando Rondo was tied to NBA YoungBoy, which created an ongoing rivalry between the two sides. The tension between Lil Durk and NBA YoungBoy's camps was well known in the industry, and it didn't just stay between them, it also affected their artists. On November 6, 2020, King Von and his crew were hanging out at the Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta, a popular spot for nightlife life. Quando Rondo and his entourage were there too. The night started off like any other, but you could feel the tension in the air. Nobody expected what was about to happen. As the night went on, an argument broke out between the two groups and things quickly spiraled out of control. The night took a dangerous turn when King Von walked up to Quando Rondo outside the club. Without warning, he threw the first punch, and a huge fight broke out between the two groups. Things quickly got out of hand as punches were thrown and chaos erupted. During the fight, Timothy L. Tim Leaks, a close friend of Quando Rondo, allegedly pulled out a gun. Shots rang out and King Von was hit several times. The scene was pure chaos, with people running in every direction as gunfire filled the air. As the fight escalated, King Von's crew rushed to get him out of danger, but it was too late. He was badly hurt and quickly taken to the hospital. Despite all efforts to save him, King Von passed away that night. Timothy Leaks, who was at the scene, was arrested and charged with his murder. However, he was released on a $100,000 bond, which made many of Von's supporters furious. Quando Rondo, who was there during the incident, firmly denied any involvement in the shooting. In later interviews, he made it clear he had no part in what happened. Quando Rondo made it clear that he didn't know King Von and had never had any problems with him. He said that when the fight broke out, he and his crew were just defending themselves. After the tragic incident, L. Tim was arrested for the murder. Even though he posted a $100,000 bond, everyone thought he'd have to go to trial. But then something unexpected happened. On August 21, 2023, Tim's lawyer, Noah Pines, shocked everyone by announcing that all charges against his client were dropped. After the charges were dropped, Tim and the rest of Quando Rondo's team celebrated in the streets. The lawyer's statement revealed that the case against Tim was dismissed before it could even go to trial. Prosecutors now believe that King Von's death was a result of self-defense. With the case behind them, Tim released a new song and music video. In the track, he rapped about the court's decision, sharing his feelings about the verdict. The lyrics went like this: "Just got a collect call from New Pluto. Yesterday he said he on the..." After the charges were dropped, Tim and the whole Quando Rondo crew were on cloud nine. They celebrated in the streets, and Tim even dropped a song about the whole situation. In the lyrics, he rapped, "Way we said he catching plays. I told him about my good news. I'm about to beat this case. I really came from the bottom, feeling like I'm Drake." It was a big moment for them, but for Lil Durk and King Von's supporters, it felt like justice was slipping away. With no conviction in the case, many believe that King Von wouldn't get the justice he deserved. The streets, though, often handle things in their own way. Soon after, rumors began flying that Quando Rondo had tried to take King Von's chain after the shooting. Quando didn't hold back, denying the allegations and calling them out for being lies just to get attention. He made it clear that no one would be thinking about chains with everything else going on. It's a wild situation with a lot of people pointing fingers, but Quando was determined to clear his name. I'm not even sure what happened, but it was in the middle of a shootout. And when it comes to jewelry, there are always people with bad intentions. They're just looking to snatch something like a $50,000 or $60,000 chain. That's a lot of money, and it's not something anyone should mess with. As for Quando Rondo and his team, they got a ton of backlash. A lot of fans and other artists blamed him for everything that happened, including King Von's death. But despite all the hate and criticism, Quando didn't back down. He stayed strong and defiant, refusing to let the pressure get to him. After the shooting, Quando Rondo went through a lot. His concerts were canceled and he got bombarded with threats. But even with all the drama, he didn't back down. He kept releasing music and stayed firm in saying he was innocent. Then, things got even more heated when Quando gave Timothy Lil Tim Leaks an expensive watch. A lot of people saw this as him showing loyalty and support, and it just added more fuel to the fire between the two sides. My twin and I couldn't help but notice, so we posted about Quando Rondo on our Instagram stories. We even showed off 2 new watches we had just bought, one with black details and the other with. He tagged Lil Tim's Instagram account, making it clear that the second luxury watch was a gift for the guy accused of shooting King Von. At the time, some people gave Lil Durk credit for not going after revenge and trying to avoid more violence in the rap world. But what they didn't know was that Durk was quietly making moves behind the scenes, like a snake in the grass. And here's something most people don't know: Durk's actually locked up right now in Broward County Jail in Florida. Yep, he's there, and I've got all the details. Man, you won't believe this, but I just got the news. Lil Durk, whose real name is Dirk Banks, has been arrested, and now he's facing a federal charge for allegedly being involved in a murder for hire plot connected to the death of El Pap. If you're wondering who El Pap is, he's actually Quando Rondo's cousin. As you might expect, DJ Academics was one of the first to share this shocking news. He made a video about it and then tweeted, "Breaking: Lil Durk has been arrested by U.S. Marshals and is being held in Broward County Correctional." Crazy, right? Lil Durk is being held at a facility right now until he's moved to California to face some serious federal charges. The charge is murder for hire, connected to the death of Quando Rondo's cousin, El Pap. This arrest comes after federal prosecutors in California charged 5 people, all believed to be part of Durk's OTF crew. They're accused of traveling across state lines to carry out an attack on Quando Rondo's crew back in 2022. And it gets crazier. Prosecutors also say these guys were involved in an attempted murder back in 2020. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Rapper Quando Rondo is accused of planning revenge for the 2020 killing of King Von, who was a close friend of Lil Durk. Both the new charges and the earlier indictment say that 5 men were behind the 2022 shooting that killed Quando Rondo's cousin. But in these latest charges, prosecutors are straight up accusing Lil Durk of ordering that shooting. They claim it was all about getting back for a 2020 shooting in Atlanta, where one of Quando Rondo's associates allegedly shot and killed King Von. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to click the card on your screen for more videos like this.